Senator, where do you think the Biden administration heads at with China?
Well, I hope they follow the bipartisan consensus. If there's been one change here in the last 4 years that's been pretty dramatic, is there really aren't very many voices left saying, oh, we should keep things the way they were with China. I think there's broad agreement now that there has to be a rethinking of it. And I hope that's the direction they'll follow. Now, as I've seen, and you've seen, Washington remains heavily populated by people that were adherents and followers of that previous idea that China was just a poor country, and once they got rich, they'd become more like us. So we have to keep an eye on that. We'll see. What I do worry about is two things. One, that they may say the right things but not be truly committed to it. And the second is that they put a bunch of people in positions who, frankly, are going to say what they need to get appointed or to get in positions of government, but in the end aren't real believers that the U.S. and China are locked into this strategic competition.
Senator, the way I think if we are serious about it, we will get our allies around who are still flat on their backs thanks to the Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus. Thanks to China, we are in a global pandemic. England's not opening up till next year. Europe is flat on its back. You see what's happening here as we try to get the vaccine out. It is all China's fault. Is this not an opportunity to unite the world against this menace? And what would you be looking for to see if they recognize that?
Yeah, look, I think the world, and you can see it in Europe already, a lot of countries look at it and they're already very concerned about the following: the unfairness of the way China does business, how vulnerable they are in supply chains, in essence, important things they need for their national security, for their economy, to deal with a pandemic. They've got to buy from China. There are already countries concerned about that, and they're taking their own steps. Now, they're smaller than us. Their economies are smaller. So they have to balance that with not being completely cut off because it would hurt their economy. But they do want U.S. leadership. 5G is a great example of it. Right now, Huawei is the world's largest provider of 5G. And what we need is for the free countries of the world to sort of come together and create an alternative to Huawei. Right. I think countries would be open to that, but it's going to take some leadership.
They actually just penned a deal to do a trade deal with China in Europe. It's a smaller one, but I find it disconcerting. There's something else that you find disconcerting, and that is a move by Democrats to do something we feared as an American, and that is pack the court. You are introducing an amendment to block court packing. This is a reality. They're moving in that direction. Eric Holder's pushing them to do it.
Yeah, and I filed that amendment last year. I filed it before we had the Amy Comey Barrett hearings when all that threat was happening as well, because this is where they're headed. This is where their radical base is demanding. And so that was their plan and their intent all along. And I think we have to be prepared for it. And if that's not the case, if they are not, in fact, planning to do it, then they should be supporting the constitutional amendment that I'm offering, which would make the number that we have now on the court permanent. So you don't start using the number of justices on the court as a political strategy to sort of taken to its absurd conclusion. If a new administration, every time they come in, they don't like the composition of the court, they'll just keep adding justices. We could, at some point have 25 members of the Supreme Court. That would be absurd. But that's the direction we could head here if we don't put a stop to it now.
And I would think Democrats would speak up and understand there's some things that should be left. Real quick, Senator, I'm just stunned by the number of executive orders that negatively affect the job market for ideology, this green push. Thousands of jobs lost, the lack of drilling on federal lands. Thousands of jobs lost. The thousands lost because you stopped building the wall that's already paid for. Were you expecting this?
Yes. Now, obviously, we haven't seen this many executive orders in such a short period of time, but I absolutely expected it because, look, the left, these left of center people and far left people, they campaign and talk about, I care about working people, I care about jobs, we want to help them and so forth. But then you have to make a decision. And there's a policy before you, like the Keystone Pipeline, does nothing for the environment. Getting rid of the Keystone Pipeline will do nothing for the environment, but it will, getting rid of it, upset our Canadian allies and put 11,000 families on the unemployment line at a time when it's hard to find work and the kind of work we need in this country. And they had no problem at the stroke of a pen putting 11,000 people out of work. And so I think the proof is in their actions. They say they care about jobs, but when the time comes to protect them, they choose the agenda of the far left over jobs for Americans. And people are seeing it. And unfortunately, 11,000 families have been hurt. And the arrogance of some of these people to say, well, we're going to find them other jobs in clean tech. Is that next week? Is that next month? Or are you talking about 10 years from now? Because these families need to eat and pay rent and raise their kids.
Yeah, the Commerce Secretary not really trained to be headhunters. People can get their own jobs. Just get out of their way. Senator Marco Rubio, thank you very much.